Oh, I don't let you cut out? Or just go around. Just go around if you can. And we'll just walk the rest.
You never know which gates are open and closed down here.
Yeah.
But it looks like they got some kind of festival going in the middle.
25.
So we just use hers.
Damn, nigga, you must wanna turn it on. Nigga, you can't make this up. I think I just got bit. No, babe. I've been just stuck right here. Okay, now we're about to.
And if you wanna throw shade my way,
Okay, so you get costumes from the better part. There's Wolverine. You can get these with in-game points. How many you can buy? Okay, okay. So these are in-game. You can buy these. Or instead of earning them, you don't put that. Okay. I should have. Yeah, I should probably should have fixed it. Rename card is 500 then. I should have. Yeah, you're right. I should have. I think that's it. I really close to that.
And if you wanna throw shade my way,
shit just coming back. Oh, okay, so that's what it does. Yeah, okay. Nah, I don't get off that. Did I pick them too?
And if you wanna throw shade my way.
Yeah, I got you. I got it. Okay, you here? Okay. This is good. I'm gonna go to like 150. We'll see who wants to be. I'm just cover, I guess. I'm like, or you get practical. They got matches in there. So Bruce Willis is Tank. Magneto. Yeah, so I guess this is do this. Yeah, Jesus. Are you being I want to try about that.
I love you, I love you, I love you.
I don't know if I like it.
I'm freezing.
That's what people gonna do. You gonna fly. Yeah, I think I get it. Maybe I ain't used it. I did right. That was it. Go away. Go one more time. Hold on, let me. I fucked up. Yeah. I fucked up that one. I'm gonna do that one. gotta stop doing that. Yeah, that did look better though. But you said you wish I wish you could. Yeah, I should I saw that. I didn't think. I can. This is gonna take like $5, I think. Oh my gosh, that's it.
2024 was iconic. Oh, hey, man in finance. And it all started with a little TikTok. You were the reason artists blew up.
The $7 Lux Cravings box has the Gordita Supreme? What is this?
2024 was iconic. Oh, hey, man in finance. And it all started with a little TikTok. You were the reason artists blew up and sparked whole movements. Because one little TikTok can spark a really big impact.
What in the world
Wait, that's not a college plan.
is that?
I see that.
You want to know why?
Huh?
It's because they think that there's no good qualities about me.
Well, that's just false. Damn, your chat is very toxic. I'm not used to that. My chat's so nice.
Duck shaking head, chat. You guys couldn't behave for 5 minutes? Not even?
And I actually said some really nice shit about you
When?
when you were gone.
No, you know what it is, honestly, Ashlyn?
Yo.
What?
I think that, and as crazy as it sounds, I genuinely think my chat has PTSD. So, they've seen girls use me in the past for like clout and money, so I think they have PTSD from it, so now they think everybody does it.
Well, I have PTSD from traders. Influencers.
But you have to understand, I'm not a normal guy.
Here's how the average man's life would change if he never saw an ad again. Day 1, he would install Pi on his computer without spending a dime because
Now, I want to talk about this recent story regarding Juice WRLD and how they did him dirty. You might have heard or seen something about this. The other day, Juice WRLD's highly anticipated posthumous album, The Party Never Ends, got released. It's his 5th studio album and supposedly his final one, which is crazy to think about. I don't know how true that is, but it's what they're saying. This album has been getting teased for quite some time. There's been a lot of hype building up to it. Fans have been waiting on this one for sure. Now, the album ended up dropping the other day, but before we get into the album itself, let's talk about the cover, because this was a really big controversial moment in the rollout. The cover got announced about a week before the release, and honestly, it was met with a lot of negative reactions. People were saying it didn't look professional, which, looking at it, is a fair critique. Then there's a 6-pack abs on a cartoon version of Juice, which a lot of people thought looked unrealistic and unnecessary. Overall, this cover was, let's just say, not it. Now, on another note, we also have to talk about the rollout, because it was a bit janky to say the least. This is something Juice fans were pointing out ever since the rollout started. The rollout for The Party Never Ends has been messy, to put it mildly. One of the key promotional strategies was the Fortnite collab. They added Juice WRLD skins to the game, which, don't get me wrong, is huge. Not every rapper, especially someone who has passed, gets an opportunity like that. It's a pretty big deal, but outside of that, the rollout just didn't feel cohesive. Songs were being added and removed from the album last minute, like some Juice WRLD fans were mentioning on Twitter, just days before its release. On a serious note, The Party Never Ends rollout is really bad, Riley said on Twitter. It's carried by the Fortnite collab, which isn't enough. The cover still hasn't been picked, and songs are being added and removed last minute, just days before the release. People have been waiting years for this, so the disorganization of this entire rollout and release left a lot of fans frustrated. Then there's the track list reveal. This caused even more controversy because fans were anticipating certain records to be included, and those records ended up being left out. One song in particular, Rental, which is very popular in the Juice WRLD community, this song was produced by singer and rapper Season, and this is a song the fans have been asking for a very long time. But apparently it didn't get cleared for the project, so once again, fans were left disappointed. Now when the album finally dropped, it was met with a lot of mixed reactions. First of all, like we said earlier, many of the Juice WRLD songs that fans have been begging for were nowhere to be found. Juice has so many famous snippets floating around the internet, and the demand for those songs has been building up for years. Fans were expecting this album to be delivered on that front, and it just didn't. Then there's the quality of the album in itself. I've seen a lot of mixed reactions, but for Juice WRLD standards, it was actually kind of low if you ask me. It didn't feel up to par with his earlier releases. The mixing and overall sound of the project was also heavily criticized. Fans felt like it was rushed, unpolished, and not a proper representation of Juice's artistry. At this point, a lot of people are convinced that his record label is actively ruining his legacy. That's the narrative I keep seeing, and honestly, it's hard to disagree when you see the backlash. Even diehard fans who've been there since day one aren't supporting this release. That speaks volumes. Juice WRLD is not the first rapper whose legacy has been mishandled though. We've talked about this topic in depth over the last few years, and we've seen it happen with other artists like Pop Smoke and XXXTentacion. Both of their legacies have been, let's just say, poorly handled, whether it's rushed albums, unnecessary collaborations, or decisions that don't align with who they were as artists. The pattern is very clear. This is
very
the same
clear
movie playing out all over again. So honestly, I'm not surprised to see this happening with Juice WRLD's legacy. Granted, I'm not as emotionally moved by the missteps, if you will, probably because I'm just not as invested as the day one fans. That said, I'll admit I'm pretty disappointed listening to this album. Personally, I tuned out of most things related to Juice WRLD's name a long time ago. It's just not the same when other people are representing him, especially when he's not here to have a say. I remember when Juice first came in the game, this young rapper singing his pain away. From the start, it was clear that he was special. Definitely a broken soul, also one who was leading the Lost Souls. Someone who carried a lot of heavy things inside of him. But the beauty of Juice WRLD was that he was able to channel all that pain into his music. I always respected Juice WRLD for his honesty, for the way he opened up and let the world see his struggles. He was a brave young man, extremely talented, and a light for so many kids who saw themselves in his music. For those who don't know, Juice WRLD recorded thousands upon thousands of songs while he was alive. The music we've heard doesn't even scratch the surface of the work he put in. And this is where the problem lies. This is how the music industry is taking advantage of a lot of artists. If you're not familiar with how record deals work, let me break it down. When an artist signs a contract with a label, the terms are almost always heavily one-sided against the artist. We've talked about this before, but to make it clear, most artists sign contracts that last in perpetuity. What that means is they're essentially signing away their masters forever. So whether you're lucky enough to live to 60 years old or tragically pass away at 21 like Jared Higgins, professionally known as Juice WRLD, the corporations own your work for an eternity. In Juice's case, from what I know, his family doesn't have any control or say in what the record label does with his music. The people who loved him the most, who truly understood his vision of artistry, don't have a voice in how his legacy is handled. Instead, the people who are in control are often looking out for their own interest more than his. And this is why we end up in situations like these where a young, incredibly talented artist like Juice WRLD passes away so young, and the posthumous projects released under his name don't hold a candle to the work he put out while he was alive. It's a tale as old as time. It's a movie we've seen before, and unfortunately it keeps playing out. The question is, when will it stop? When will the industry start treating artists with the respect they deserve, both in life and in death? The sad truth is it's never gonna change. I don't really think it will. There's too much of a financial incentive for things to be this way. You know exactly what you're gonna get if you put your hand on a stove. You're gonna get burnt. So it's up to the artist to be as smart as possible by thinking way ahead into the future and not getting burnt. Now these things become very complicated when the artist in question ends up dying at a young age. No one plans to die young, that's a fact. Juice wasn't planning to pass away at the age he did. The circumstances on a private jet ingesting those pills led to things ending the way they did. Yes, it was a decision, but it's so much more complicated than that, and honestly, I don't think this is the moment we should dive into that conversation. What I do want to talk about is that when an artist, just like in this case, isn't here anymore, there can be a situation where their legacy is handled the right way. You might be asking how? Well, let's just say it doesn't always have to be like this. Take a look at Mac Miller, for example. Mac Miller, who tragically passed away at the age of 26, is a textbook example of how an artist's legacy should be handled. The way Mac's legacy has been preserved speaks volumes about the environment he had around him. Clearly, there was a lot of love, care and respect for his artistry. I'm pretty sure that Mac Miller also took some steps contractually to personally ensure that if he wasn't here, his work, his name, and his likeness would still be represented in the right way. If that wasn't the case, there's no way everything related to Mac Miller would have this overwhelmingly positive tone to it. An artist environment is crucial. For someone like Juice WRLD, I can't fully speak on the specific people he had around him or their character, aside from Ali, Lottie, but yeah, we're not gonna go down that path right now. But one thing I can say for certain is that Juice didn't have the best environment around him, and that environment reflected in his mental state. He was deep into addiction, through a lot of drugs in his system, and that was apparent even in interviews. I'm sure you've seen those clips of Juice dozing off mid-conversation.
I want you to describe that single and that track that we're playing right now.
I dare you to let me build you a completely free e-commerce store preloaded with 20 handpicked products that are trending all over the world, basically validated by AI from a trending product.
Shut up, Nigga.
It's heartbreaking. It tells you so much about what he was going through internally and the lack of a truly productive environment to help him navigate those struggles. At the end of the day, an artist's surroundings plays a significant role in their mental health and their career. Juice WRLD's tragic story is a reminder of what happens when those pieces aren't in place. And unfortunately, his legacy is being mishandled in a way that reflects that. It didn't have to be this way though. When an artist is in this kind of mental state, the last thing they're thinking about is what happens to my legacy when I'm not here. It's almost like they're in survival mode. You can't plan for the future when you're just trying to make it through the present moment. And that's not unique to artists. It applies to every aspect of life. When you're consumed by what's happening right now, planning for the long term feels impossible. So this conversation about why Juice WRLD is being done dirty, honestly, it's way deeper than most people realize. It's way deeper than, oh, the people who are in charge of his music don't know what they're doing. It's a matter of preparing for your life and what comes after. But here's the thing. When you're in a vulnerable place mentally, dealing with addiction, stress, or whatever demons you're facing, it's hard to think about those things. And unfortunately, that's when the people around you, i.e. the environment you're in and the contracts you've signed, come into play. Juice WRLD wasn't in the headspace to worry about his legacy after he was gone. I mean, how could he be? He was carrying so much weight, so many struggles in the moment. And because of that, there was no preparation for what his career would look like if the unthinkable happened. And now here we are seeing the aftermath. This is why this conversation goes beyond just blaming the label or the people in charge of his music. It's about the system that allows this to keep happening. Artists, especially young ones, are thrown into a machine that doesn't prioritize their well-being or their long-term legacy. And when they're in survival mode, they're not in a position to fight for those things either. So while it's easy to criticize what's happening with Juice's posthumous releases, and trust me, there's plenty to criticize, it's important to understand that there's deeper issues at play here. This is a systematic problem, one that starts with lack of support for artists while they're alive, because by the time they're gone, it's already too late. And that's why we're having this conversation right now. My goal is to let artists and the public know the ugly realities of how things can end up when you're not in charge of your own legacy. If you don't set up things properly, others will do it for you. And they'll do it in a way that serves their interest, not yours. You want to make sure you set things up in a way where even when you're not here, you can trust that the right people are handling your work and your name. Because here's the harsh truth. You're often more valuable to the music industry dead than alive. At the very least, when you're gone, you're no longer around to fight for yourself or challenge the narrative. The saddest part about this conversation, though, is that this is supposedly Juice WRLD's final album. That's crazy to think about, but honestly, I'm not sure how much I believe it. Juice's estate reportedly has thousands of songs in the vault. If anything, this might just be the last album for the next few years. Record labels in general play the long game. They're not thinking about the next 5 months, they're thinking about the next 5 decades. And here's a theory I have about posthumous albums in general, and it applies here as well. A lot of times when these albums come out, they're purposely disappointing in terms of quality, and I think that's because the label is saving the best for the last. From the fans' perspective, they're hearing an album that could have been so much better because they know what the artist was capable of. But from the corporation's perspective, they're giving you just enough to keep you hooked for future releases. And because they own this music in perpetuity, they can also release it in perpetuity. His music will always be the content that brings revenue back to the Juice WRLD estate. 30 years from now, when today's Juice WRLD fans are pushing 40 or older with 2 kids and a house in the suburbs, these record labels are still counting on releasing his music, that's for sure. And they'll hold on to the catalog until the perfect moment because they know it's a never-ending cash cow. Artists like Juice WRLD, especially those who come from a generation fueled by social media, are in a unique position. Since Juice didn't have time to become a legacy act in the mainstream, his music will always be the content that brings revenue back to the Juice WRLD estate. In comparison, look at someone like Michael Jackson. He's the definition of a legacy act. His brand and name will always bring in incredible amounts of revenue solely based on his existence. Now I know this this might sound like a crazy comparison to make, but it perfectly highlights the point I'm trying to make about how an artist's legacy is handled. Michael Jackson's legacy was built over decades of groundbreaking work, iconic performances, and a team that knew how to preserve and amplify his name even after he passed. It's why his estate still generates hundreds of millions of dollars every year. His catalog, his likeness, and his influence are so deeply embedded into pop culture that he's untouchable. And someone like Juice WRLD, who comes from a completely different era, I mean, he's in a completely different position. Since Juice didn't have time to become a legacy act in the mainstream, think about it, the Juice WRLD brand over the next 10 to 20 years will likely generate tens of millions of dollars. And I'm being very generous when I say that. His catalog alone pulls in a massive amounts of money every year, even now. The labels know this, and that's why they're counting on fans to stick around for the day when they start releasing more unreleased tracks. Overall, it's just sad because I really wish things could have been different. But let's not sit around praying for the music industry to change. Let's become that change. Artists need to plan for their future. They need to ensure that in the unfortunate event of their untimely death, the right people are in charge of their name, their brand, and their art. If they don't, they're gonna become another money grab for the industry. And we also need to focus on switching up these contracts because we all know who exactly they benefit. Anyway, they're doing Juice WRLD dirty, man. I can't even lie. Appreciate you for making it all the way till the end, by the way. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like. And if you're new here, my name is Blackie Speaks. Nice to meet you. Consider subscribing and welcome to the family. What do you guys think about this topic? Do you feel like Juice WRLD is being done dirty? Let me know in the comment section below, and I'll catch you guys on the next one, okay? Peace. I'm out.
These little niggas still alive. Oh yeah, it's over, bro. There.
If you've been injured in a recent car accident that wasn't your fault, I'm gonna show you how I got this 100.
There aren't that many cases where the suspects are smarter than the authorities. But in these 4 cases, the police are completely outclassed. Mark Dinclow was a gang leader accused of kidnapping, torturing, and murdering a former member. But what police didn't know is that Mark was about to completely outsmart them. In July of 2015, Robert Huggins' body was found badly beaten with a fractured skull, lacerations across the chest, and missing nipples. Robert had been kicked from the Gypsy Joker Motorcycle Club just days earlier, so eventually Mark was identified as the lead suspect and brought in for interrogation.
You're with the motorcycle club. You have some affiliation with one, is that right?
I don't have any answers for questions like that.
Okay. Well, the reason I'm asking is that a few months back, a gentleman named Jeff Sudan, you know him? He threw your name out in conjunction with kind of a repossession of a car, a collection of a car. That sound familiar to you?
No. Jeff Sudan almost might. I'm not sure about that. It seems like Sudan rings a bell somewhere, but no collections of a car. No, I don't know what you're talking about.
Mark makes it clear to the cops exactly how his interrogation is going to go, stating that he simply won't be answering any questions he doesn't want to. However, he's chosen to waive his right to an attorney, meaning he has to approach the interrogation completely on his own. The cops ask a few more questions about Mark's background, but he quickly decides they've heard enough.
Okay, so this last time, how long was she?
So there's my background. That's it on Nicole. What else you want to know?
Okay.
Is Nicole the problem here?
Nicole had well, let me back up a little bit. How long have you been in a relationship?
I'm not going to answer any more questions about Nicole.
Okay.
I don't have any more answers for you until I find out what you're talking about.
Okay, well,
you guys brought me in. I didn't bring you in. I want to hear what you got to talk about.
Well, I'm trying to get to that, but part of that's going to involve how long you've known Nicole.
Well, if you don't want to tell me what the heck I'm doing here, say so. Because I'm not going to sit here and give you a bunch of my background so you can play whatever kind of game you're playing. This is kind of stupid, man. I just got picked up and treated pretty roughly. You can still see the marks on my hands. This one was completely asleep all the way here, and thrown in a room, a complete silent room there. I want to know what the heck's going on, man.
Okay.
As is common in many cases like this, Mark hasn't been told why he's been brought in. However, he should have already put 2 and 2 together. After Robert was kicked from the gang, he broke into Mark's house, tied up and threatened Nicole, and stole a large amount of firearms as revenge. Regardless, Mark is still refusing to answer any questions, and trying his best to confirm why he's even there in the first place.
Nicole took off in a car that she may have purchased with assets that belonged to you, something like that, and then Jeff Sudan and a couple other guys kind of returned that car to you. Does that make sense to you? Is that
Or attempted to.
or attempted to? So if we got the story wrong, can you help us out with that?
Well, I'm not going to straighten your story out. No, I'm not. Not until I find out why I'm sitting here.
Well, a few months before this car thing happened, Nicole was at your house, and somebody busted in the house and roughed her up a little bit, tied her up. You remember that?
You know, I can't really answer to that. You're going to have to get that story from her.
Mark's suspicions have now been confirmed, and he's probably also linked it all the way back to Robert's death. What's interesting, though, is that his body language doesn't change at all when the cop starts to talk about the break-in. Usually you'd expect some sort of movement or obvious discomfort, but he actually remains completely still, only moving to display how ridiculous the cop's claims are.
Who did you tell about what did happen?
Oh, God. Tons of people, man.
Okay. Give me some examples.
No.
Okay.
No, I'm not going to sit here and name names for you, man. But I'll tell you what, I don't really understand why this stuff that you're talking about with this dude and the car stuff, why would that get handcuffs put on me?
Well,
why would those handcuffs go on me? What did I do that was illegal in any of that stuff? What did I even have to do with it? I wasn't even there for any of it. None of it. Okay. Not anything that you've talked about so far. I was a long way away from it. So why would I get handcuffs put around my wrist for it?
Fortunately for Mark, there's a very simple way to get access to all the information he's looking for. All he has to do is get a lawyer. In a criminal case such as this one, the police are required to give an attorney all of the evidence proving the accused may be innocent or guilty. Many people have an incorrect belief that asking for a lawyer is an inherent admission of guilt, but every suspect, guilty or not, has a complete, unquestionable right to an attorney. Asking for one at any point in the investigation is completely fine and cannot be used against you in court. Over the next few minutes, the cops question Mark further about Nicole and her friends before finally deciding to bring up Robert.
Part of her junkie friends?
Bagger Bob?
Yeah. That ring of...
Yeah, I know who that is. Okay. The guy that got killed about a year and a half ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was he one of the ones who set this up with Nicole?
Man, you know, you're going to have to, if you're trying to like tie that into this or something like that, you're going to have to talk to Nicole about that.
Okay. So was Bagger Bob one of your friends, not hers?
Well, you know, like I said, you know, actually, hey, now that fucking you're starting to bring his name into it, and he got killed, now I don't think I have any other questions to answer for you. Now I think having a lawyer here might be a good idea.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea if you're starting to ask questions about a dead guy.
Okay. Well, let me clarify something with you.
Okay.
Do you want us to keep chatting, or do you want to talk to a lawyer? I need to know that.
You can keep chat. I'll keep listening a little longer before I call in a lawyer. Yeah.
Okay.
Now that Robert has been brought in, Mark knows it's the right time to ask for a lawyer, but still decides against it. This is probably because he's trying to show some amount of compliance. Each time Mark says he's got nothing to say, he usually follows that up by giving police at least a small piece of information. Mark currently has a dilemma. He must either choose whether to continue talking with the police in an effort to seem more innocent, but risk slipping up and giving them too much info, or completely shut down and refuse to give any more information. He can't have it both ways.
Now what?
Well,
I'm not. Am I arrested for anything?
You're being detained at this point.
Okay, but I'm not under arrest quite yet.
That's correct.
Okay, then I don't need a lawyer quite yet. Do you suspect me of something?
Well, help us get this unconfused.
Because if you suspect me of doing a crime, let me know so I can get a lawyer. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Well,
I don't think we've accused you of committing a crime.
No, you haven't, and that's why I'm still looking at these marks on my wrists and going, man, what a way to treat somebody who's not suspected of doing a crime.
Okay.
You know?
What Mark doesn't seem to realize is that they technically have accused him of a crime. In criminal law, being detained means to hold an individual in custody if there is reasonable suspicion that they engaged in or are about to be engaged in criminal activity. Taking this at face value, the cops have just explicitly told Mark
Getting 8 ads every 20 minutes is actually diabolical. Meet Pi, the ad blocker that actually works on Twitch, aka every user's dream. I can watch my favorite streamers without being bombarded with ads every few minutes. It's seriously been a game changer. Plus, you can use Pi to block ads on Amazon, Google, and YouTube. Like, look at this. It works so seamlessly. And the best part, Pi will actually pay you to see ads. It's your choice. Either block ads forever or get paid to see them. Trust me, everyone is going to be using Pi. Don't miss out.
Mark, they believe he's a criminal. It's clear that Mark believes he knows what's up in the interrogation rule, but he's definitely missing out on some crucial pieces of knowledge.
Can you clarify anything
Some
for us
crucial pieces
about
of knowledge.
Vagabond?
You know, any stories that I tell at all about that guy, they dip into club business. They did club stuff. And I'm not going to go club stuff with you guys for nothing. That's just, it's against my rules and it ain't going to happen.
Okay.
You know,
even when he was out of the club?
That big a deal to tell you guys that he stole from the club. And then when he got caught for it, he blamed it all on heroin, which was automatic kick out for him. So it's not like we found out about the heroin, we found out about the stealing. And when we jumped about the stealing, he blamed it all on heroin. That's what happened. And he got kicked out of the club.
Despite telling the cops that he isn't going to say anything about Robert, he decides to talk about him and the club for another 20 full minutes, going on huge tangents and telling random stories completely unrelated to the case. The cops then decide to take a break and leave Mark alone for a further 20 minutes before returning once again and asking if he'd like a lawyer.
So a few times you've, mentioned maybe a lawyer, maybe not. We'd like to talk to you further, but we just want to make sure. I mean, it's your choice. If you want a lawyer, that's fine. We'll stop communicating here. If you don't want a lawyer, we can keep talking. And obviously, as the right explains.
Then I must be going to get arrested, or you wouldn't have me call a lawyer in here. Then definitely I want a lawyer. If I'm going to get arrested, I want a lawyer, yeah.
So like I said, I don't know what your charges are going to be. That's being determined.
Yeah, man.
So
if there's going to be charges, so you guys are. So I just have to sit here now. I'm going to wait for you guys to decide what my charges are going to be. What a bunch of crap, man. Why didn't you figure that out before you came and got me? If you're going to charge me with something, this is. I mean, it's pretty rude treatment for somebody who isn't charged with anything yet.
Well, part of it was determined on what you were able to tell us, or willing to tell us.
Yeah,
because
well,
you're the only one who can talk yourself out of the hole you're in.
Well, hole?
Yeah.
I'm not in the hole, man.
Well,
I mean, you guys may think I'm in a hole, but I know I'm not in a hole because have you done anything that you should be arrested for lately? I know I haven't.
But it turns out Mark was absolutely in a hole, about as deep a hole as you could manage to get. After a long legal battle, Mark and another club member, Chad Erickson, were both charged with kidnapping and torturing Robert Huggins to death, and as of 2022, were sentenced to life behind bars. But unlike Mark, DaBaby made the cops look outright stupid when he was brought in for allegedly assaulting and robbing the owner of a nightclub. DaBaby, aka Jonathan Kirk, was brought in for an interrogation, but little did the detectives know he was about to completely outsmart them and show exactly how you should act in this situation.
What's your full name? You just want to get from you. This is just a formality. Just name, date of birth, and all that stuff.
Immediately, it's obvious that this isn't going to be an easy one for the detectives. Kirk starts off by refusing to answer any of the officer's questions, even just regarding his own name. He's already been read his Miranda rights, informing him that he has the right to remain silent, so it seems as though he's choosing to do just that. Interestingly, however, he is choosing to waive his right to a lawyer, and let's be honest here, it's not because he can't afford it. The best course of action if you're ever put in this scenario is to stay silent and ask for a lawyer. But this time, Kirk is confident that he'll be able to wriggle out of this himself, as long as he chooses his words carefully.
An incident occurred at the hotel, 1500 Southwest First Avenue, that you were there for, correct?
What incident?
An incident. You had an altercation with somebody?
No.
You didn't. Did you have a business dealing with somebody?
No.
You didn't?
No.
So somebody didn't bring you $20,000 in front of the hotel in your SUV?
No. Somebody bring $20,000 that wasn't theirs and lied to them and told them that it was for an event of theirs on the 31st. And lied to them. That person, once he realized they were doing bad business, said nah and left for his $20,000.
Okay, so you didn't count?
And got my contact information to do business the right way. That's what happened.
Around what time was this, sir?
I don't know. Whatever time they told us. Whatever time the camera showed me not robbing no damn body that time.
Kirk is claiming that he had nothing to do with anything that happened outside. His story is somewhat unclear, but he's essentially saying that his manager was talking with an event promoter about playing at a nightclub called Cafe Iguana Pines. But it turns out the money that they were offering was stolen, and the promoter was acting strange during the deal. So instead of taking it and going through with it anyway, he told them to get their act together and left without an argument. This, of course, does not explain the altercation outside that was clearly caught on camera, but with the footage unclear and no witnesses nearby to identify the assailants, as long as Kirk sticks to his story, theoretically, things should be perfectly fine.
Common sense. You know what I made to even be down here? A promoter booked me at that hotel. I didn't pay to be at the hotel. I was paid for. You'd have let me on my room, you would have saw close to $250,000 cash, legally, hard-earned money. I don't got to take nothing from nobody, bro.
Well, let me ask you this.
I will go outside here right now and throw $10,000 in the air. Like, I do not care about no money. I don't.
Was there an argument?
No, it was an argument. I didn't argue with a soul. My voice was never raised. There was never aggressive language from me. None of that.
Was there a fight?
None of that. No, I ain't seen no fight. Man, nothing was taken. We shouldn't be in no robbery, bro. So when y'all get done doing what y'all doing, y'all need to do y'all job. Y'all need to follow y'all process. And y'all need to arrest whoever gave y'all these false allegations, bro. This is bullshit.
While it may just look like Kirk is flexing his rapper money here, this is actually a very good point for him to bring up in this situation. If he's doing random $30,000 deals on a weekday and paying for hundreds of thousands of people per month, what does he need $80 and an iPhone for? The further he can place himself from this event, both literally and figuratively, the better. From Kirk's point of view, he was nowhere near that crime. He had no reason to commit that crime, and he has sound and reasonable explanation for his whereabouts at the time. However, from the detective's side, a crime was committed, and Kirk's vehicle was right there as it happened. So they need to try and extract the information needed to piece his day together to come up with a story that Kirk can.
I'm a single mom. I've had a lot of those imposter syndrome moments, but everyone deserves to be able to self-grow. My children watching me going through
Cannot argue with. That forces him into a confession.
When I encountered you in the hotel, you came back to the concierge, the counter. Yeah. Where were you coming from at that point? Prime,
whatever the hell I went to eat. I went to get some food.
Where is that?
I don't remember.
You don't know?
No.
How'd you get there?
In the car.
What kind of car? Was it a car you drove? Somebody else drove?
An Uber.
An Uber?
Yeah.
What kind of car was it? Small car, SUV, truck? What?
I don't know. Let's talk about what matters.
That's why we're here.
Let's talk about what y'all need to get me about this stuff. When I'm driving in the car, what I went to go eat, what time I went, that don't have nothing to do with the fact I ain't robbed a damn soul. Me, nobody around me, ain't nobody robbing nobody.
Let's take the word robbery out of the picture.
So why we here? We taking the word robbery out of the picture. Y'all are robbery detectives. This is robbery unit. That's the second word he said. That's the second word he said when he came in here, robbery. Come on, bro.
Okay, listen.
He told me he asked to question me about a robbery when I walked in my hotel. Robbery? I had every answer to the question you needed right there. Whoa, that ain't it. That's false. Okay, throw that out the window. We talking about robbery, bro. It's nothing for me to talk about. I didn't rob.
So do you think that we just woke up this morning and decided to just...
I think y'all got a phone call from somebody that's already a liar. I know they're a liar. Got a phone call from somebody that's a liar and y'all bought it. Y'all believed it. Y'all got me in here and y'all put me in handcuffs. Brought me outside the hotel in handcuffs, cameras and shit all on me. Come on, bro. This shit is bad for what I got going on. And I ain't even do shit to that man.
Even without a lawyer present, Kirk knows exactly what to do. He currently has the upper hand in this interrogation and needs to keep it that way. The cops are searching for anything that puts Kirk at the scene of the crime, but by redirecting the conversation away from that, back to what he thinks is actually important, there's no realistic way that they'll be able to get what they need. But even though he's winning, it's still worth noting how strange it is that he's not asking for a lawyer. Kirk obviously knows exactly what to do in an interrogation and has clearly spent time learning what to do. If that's true, he should also know that there's next to no scenarios where lawyering up will harm his case. But whether it's an ego thing or just a lapse in his thinking, Kirk is definitely still winning this interrogation. But he's about to start absolutely dominating.